Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover. Welcome to today's video where we're going to talk about how to select a fishing kayak, and we're going to talk about basic kayaks, intermediate kayaks, and then more advanced kayaks. Fish on! That's a toad, brother. Golly! All right, so one of the more popular videos that I've ever done is the basic, intermediate, and advanced fishing kayak selection, but that video is about 5 years old and pretty much is already out of date. So after years of reviewing fishing kayaks, working in retail, and just kind of being, intimately involved in the industry, I've come up with an acronym that will help you remember the things that you need to consider and the order that I think you should consider them in when it comes to buying a fishing kayak. So the way you remember it is, before you scrape your money together to go buy a fishing kayak, you use the acronym SCRAPE. So the S stands for stability, but I also like to say standability, okay? If you can't stand in a fishing kayak, you're already gonna be somewhat limited. The C stands for comfort. If you can't spend time in the boat and you can't put the hours in that you need to accomplish that time on the water to be more effective, you're also going to be limited. The R stands for riggability and reliability. Now, riggability means that the boat can be rigged, whether it comes with the accessories already on it or you have the ability to add them aftermarket, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. The A stands for affordability, and I know a lot of folks think, well, maybe you should think about that earlier in the acronym, or well, you should think about that first, and I get it. But I do think that you should consider those other factors first and factor that into what your affordability window is. The P stands for performance, and then the E stands for everything else. And some of the things that fit into that everything else, or transportability, how are you going to be transporting it? Is it too heavy to car top? Do you need a trailer? Okay. Storage, are you going to store it in your garage? And if so, how much room do you have in your garage? You're not going to be able to store it in your garage. You're going to store it outside. How are you going to store it? Weight for transport from your vehicle to the water. So all of those things fall under what I consider the everything else factor. Weight of the boat itself, and just some of those basic limitations, like can you add motors? Those things also fall under riggability, but the E really is that catch-all for the other things that you should consider. So let's jump into talking about basic fishing kayaks. Now, when I say basic fishing kayaks, I'm talking about fishing kayaks before any of the advanced features start getting added. Okay, advanced features would be tracks, frame seats, things along those lines. And there's three kayaks and kayak series that come to mind that I think should be right there at the top of your list for consideration. Because of availability nationwide and because of affordability, you should really look at the Ascend series from Bass Pro Shop Cabela's. And the reason I say distribution is there's Bass Pro Shops all over the country, there's Cabela's all over the country, and you can easily walk in and take a look at those boats. I don't think they're the best in the category, but I think they're the most accessible. And in a lot of cases, you can finance it through the store, so that's a factor to consider in your affordability assessment. So Bass Pro Shop's line of Ascend kayaks are really good, what I consider gateway boats. They're a good product to get you into kayak fishing, make sure you're gonna like it, and then decide if you're gonna move up from there. But they are at the upper end of that affordability window. The two boats that I think are probably the best in this basic category, that's still gonna have everything you need, but not really getting into the bigger bells and whistles, are the Pelican Catch series. Really affordable, available all over the country at places like Dick's Sporting Goods and Academy Sports and Outdoors. And so again, they also are really available. And that Pelican Catch series is a really good value. There's two things you got to consider when purchasing that boat though. They are not polyethylene, they're polypropylene, they're seamed, and they're just a little bit less durable than your polyethylene boats that most other manufacturers make their boats out of. But that's also how Pelican can make them a little bit more affordably. You're just gonna not be able to drag it as much. You're just gonna have to be more cognizant of what you do to that boat. But they come with frame seats, they come with rod holders, they come with tracks. Probably the best in class if it just wasn't for the fact that they weren't polyethylene. But again, lightweight, affordable, comes with a lot of features. But what I consider the best in that class of basic fishing kayaks, and I'm not talking about your $3.99 Walmart kayaks or your Tractor Supply boats or any of that. The biggest limitation to the Walmart, Tractor Supply, basic entry-level boats that you can get at places like that is going to be weight capacity. Most of us that kayak fish are grown men or grown women, and the weight capacity on those boats is really limited. The seats also are not that comfortable. The ability to stand just isn't there. So if you absolutely have to use one of those, Sun Dolphin or Lifetime boats to get into kayak fishing, then by all means do that. Just make sure that you understand when it comes to weight capacity, the weight of the boat is factored into that. So if it says 275-pound weight capacity and the boat weighs 50 pounds, you've only got 225 pounds of usable capacity. So you make sure you keep that in mind when you start looking to buy a basic fishing kayak. Most premium manufacturers do a little bit better job of doing the weight calculation, the usable weight and things like that, and they're even getting better at it. But those basic kayaks are good, but I said I was going to tell you what I consider the best kayak in that category, and that is the Jackson Stax. It's STAXX, and the reason that I think that boat is a good boat and probably the best basic entry-level fishing kayak on the market is at $700 to $789, depending on where you look. Those boats are really portable. They're easy to store. They don't have a whole lot of bells and whistles, but what you're going to lose is that frame seat. So you are going to be sitting on a pad directly on the hull of the boat, and that's what you're going to get with most basic fishing kayaks that are going to be sub, $800. So I think that if you're on a budget or if you're looking to buy two boats, that $300 difference between that and a $1,000 kayak might not be that much. But if you're trying to buy a couple of boats for you and the kids, or you're trying to buy boats for the family, there's three reasons that I consider this the best fishing kayak in that category. The number one reason is affordability. The number two reason is you don't have a lot of bells and whistles, but you also don't have a lot of things to break. And if you're going to be fishing with a friend, if you're going to be fishing with family members and you need to add multiple boats, they actually do what's built into the name. So they stack. So if you need to throw 3, 4, maybe even 5 or 6 of them in the back of a pickup truck, you don't have a trailer and you don't have a lot of places to store them, that boat is going to fit that category, perfectly. When we move into the intermediate kayaks, those are those kayaks that are going to be really good price point, somewhere between $950 and sub $1,200, right? And I think that the best boat in that class, in my opinion, and I've done videos on that, I'll link it up in the description box below, is the RS-117 from Bonafide. But I will say, I helped design that boat. I've paddled that boat more than any other boat in that class, and so therefore I'm a little bit biased. All right, other great boats in that category are going to be like the Old Town Topwater 106. You're going to get into like your New Canoe Flints, and basically any of the premium manufacturers in that price point. The boat that I would consider best in class, though, at that intermediate level, meaning it doesn't quite have those advanced features, but it's got a lot of the features that have kind of trickled down for the more high-end boats, would be the Old Town Sportsman 120. That boat is a little bit more expensive, around $1,200, depending on where you're shopping. And so it is at the upper end of that intermediate class, but I do think that it comes with the most features, the most riggability. It satisfies the stability, comfort, riggability, reliability, affordability, performance, and then the kind of the everything else. Again, I tell you guys straight up, I'm a little bit biased. So personally, in that class, I think the RS-117 is the best bang for the buck, but only $150 more for that Sportsman 120. You're going to get a little bit of a bump up in kind of all of those categories, which is why it's a little bit more expensive. And so that's a great boat to consider. Another boat that fits into that category is the Jackson Bite and the New Canoe Unlimited. Both of those boats fit that category really well. And then there's tons of other boats out there, but these are the ones that are kind of the most popular, that get the most traction, the ones that I have the most experience with. In doing this video, I want you to think more about the features than the specific models that I mentioned, but I want to give you some examples because you can probably find really good comparisons of those boats to other boats in that category. Another great boat in that intermediate category that's really more of a boat than it is a kayak, but if you're looking for big and wide and stable and easy to transport, it's the Johnny boat. And the Johnny boat comes from the same folks that manufacture Feel Free, but it's a cool little boat, has a lot of riggability, it has a lot of upgrade capacity, and it comes in right there in that intermediate class. Things that you're going to notice on intermediate class boats over your basic boats are things like frame seats, so you're getting your butt up off the deck. A lot of the premium features, not all of them, but a lot of the premium features worked into the whole design. Tracks that you can mount your accessories on. Maybe not as many tracks as your more premium boats, maybe not as long of tracks and maybe as not in as many places, but they're gonna have tracks on them. They're gonna have dry pods, they're gonna have hatch covers, in-hull access, things like that. And the reason that those boats are more affordable is mostly manufacturers that make the real super premium boats have trickled down a lot of the handles and things that they've already amortized the cost of those components and building the molds for them, so they can now make those intermediate boats a little bit more cost effectively. So again, my favorite in that class, RS-117, the one that I think is probably the best in class, but it is priced at the highest, is that Old Town Sportsman 120. But there's a lot of great boats in that category. Like I said, like the New Canoe Unlimited, you know, Feel Free's Moken has snuck in with its redesign and become a real player in that class. But I'll link up as many great boats in the basic, intermediate, and advanced class as I can in the description box below, and find what I consider my favorite videos or blogs and reviews. And I'll put together a comprehensive list that'll go down in the description box below. With supply constraints and things that you guys are all aware of with the pandemic, it's just been very difficult to get my hands on all of these boats. But I feel like we're going into that time of the year when people are starting to think about buying a new fishing kayak. They're starting to think about Christmas presents and things like that. And we're headed into fall where a lot of folks have bought a cheaper boat. They got 9 months to a year under their belt and they're looking to upgrade. So I felt like it was time to redo this video. So now let's get into advanced fishing kayaks and why I consider them advanced, because here's the thing. What you're gonna get when you get into advanced fishing kayaks is you're gonna get an upgrade in all of the factors that I consider. You're gonna get an upgrade in stability. You're gonna get an upgrade in comfort. You're gonna get an upgrade in riggability, reliability. You're gonna get an upgrade in what I consider affordability for what you get, and I'll talk about that in just a second. You're obviously gonna get an upgrade in performance, but there are a lot of things that you have to consider in the everything else category. They're usually gonna be heavier. They're gonna be harder to transport. In a lot of cases, folks buy a really high-end fishing kayak and then ultimately end up needing a trailer, or they end up needing some type of apparatus to get it on and off of their truck, which just adds more cost to the purchase of that boat. So those are things that you have to consider. All right, guys, so let's jump into some of what I consider the advanced or best advanced fishing kayaks on the market. You know, top of the line is going to be the Hobie Pro Angler 360. That boat has by far one of the most advanced fishing kayaks on the market. It comes with the most features, and obviously it also has the price to go with it, so it's the most expensive boat in that category. Right behind it, and this series also is, in my opinion, interchangeable with what you consider the best fishing kayaks in that class of advanced fishing kayaks, and that's the Autopilot series. And the reason that I consider those boats up there as the most advanced, or maybe even the most advanced, is they're the only kayak company on the market that has gone so far as to truly integrate motorization into the boat. Everything works clean. It's pre-rigged with power. It's pre-rigged with the motor. The apparatus for connecting it is all there. And so it truly is the only motorized kayak on the market that comes with everything you need. You know, there's other companies like Feel Free has a motorized version. Wilderness Systems has attempted it in the past. Jackson also has an electric kayak in some of their lines, but they've discontinued most of those. So again, the Autopilot series is what I consider the most advanced fishing kayak on the market that already comes motorized. So depending on whether you want to be a pedal drive or a motorized kayak is kind of really where you have to decide what you consider the best in class. I think that every year Hobie is always the leader. I think over the last 2 years with some of the reliability issues they had, Autopilot and Old Town passed them. But I do think that Hobie has got that reliability thing under control, made some quick changes, got their dealers up to speed. And so I think that Hobie Pro Angler 360 has moved back into the clear #1 fishing kayak on the market in the most advanced category. You know, from there, the field gets really crowded. When you drop down from those two boats, you're going to get into things like the Bonafide SS 127. You know, you're going to get into your New Canoe Pursuits. You're going to get into your Feel Free Lure series and those bigger boats. You're going to get into things like the Natives and all of the different pedal drive models, the Titans, the Slayers. And I also feel like that Native has the best breadth of pedal drive kayaks. They have some that go from their advanced boats down into their somewhere between intermediate and advanced. And then again, there's a lot of other manufacturers out there. I think the Jackson NAR has a lot of potential. I do think it needs a few tweaks out of the gate, and Jackson's addressed that. They've talked about it on their social media. So that Jackson NAR is going to be right there in that same category or same conversation with the Hobie Pro Angler, the Old Town Autopilot series. But Jackson, I think, had a miss in discontinuing some of the boats that would fit in this category, like the Big Rig and, you know, some of their other boats. So, you know, other boats to consider in that category would be like the Cuda HD from Jackson. And again, guys, I'm probably going to miss some boats as I do the research for filling out the description box below. I'll create you a much more, you know, comprehensive list. But again, what you're looking for in those advanced fishing kayaks is just the upgrade and all of the features that you should consider when you scrape your money together to buy a fishing kayak. So I'm actually starting to give the pedal kayaks a lot more consideration. I was heavily involved in the design process of the P127, you know, for Bonafide. I've got a ton of experience now in Hobies. I've jumped in and spent a lot of time in the native boats. And I've also got a little bit of experience in kind of the breadth of the rest of the boats, like the Wilderness Systems Recon, for example. Haven't had the ability to review all of those boats, but I do have a lot of experience in them. And I know that Jackson Kayak has recently made a major upgrade to their pedal drive, so they've actually become a much more viable platform in the pedal-driven kayaks with the introduction of their fourth iteration, I think it is, of their pedal drive system. So propulsion is definitely something you're going to have to consider. But one thing that I would tell you that I think you should always consider is that things like pedal drives and motors are mechanical, so they have the propensity to fail. And so I always want a fishing kayak that I can also paddle if it really comes down to it, unless I'm in a situation where I'm buddy fishing, I got another angler with me, I've got a safety boat or something along those lines, which kind of defeats the purpose of kayak fishing in some cases. But I always lean more towards a boat that I could paddle if I absolutely have to. So when you're considering what you're looking for, make sure that you think about all of that stuff before you go out and drop your hard-earned money on a fishing kayak. So guys, listen, I didn't go through very in-depth detail about the specific models. I really wanted to talk to you more about how to select a fishing kayak, the things that you should consider. You know, we're going to do some flashes on the screen of some of the better fishing kayaks through the video. Again, I'm going to put a comprehensive list together down in the description box. But let's run through one more time before we end the video the factors that you should consider: stability and standability, comfort, right? Rigability, reliability, affordability, and what that means to you is something you're going to have to decide for yourself. Performance, and again, that P can also stand for propulsion, paddle, pedal, or power, or any combination of those three. And then everything else: transportability, you know, weight, getting it to the water, from the water. The other apparatus you're going to have to buy to make that kayak fit your fishing style also should be back factored into your affordability, you know, consideration. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Each and every year, I do a review of what I consider the best fishing kayaks for that year, and I'll link up each of those videos in the description box below. And each year when I do the new ones, I'll come back to this video and update the description box. Hope you guys love this video. Y'all do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button, leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will see y'all in the next video.